The silence hit first. At table 7, billionaire Ethan Thornhill froze with his fork halfway to his lips, the piece of braised short rib suspended in midair. His eyes widened, first in surprise, then disbelief, finally something deeper. Something like fear. Who made this dish? His voice, normally controlled and measured, cracked. The question silenced the murmur of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurant, Lumiere, where reservations required both connections and a willingness to part with thousands simply for a seat. Ava Sparrow felt it before she saw it, every head turning toward her. She stood in her pressed black uniform at the edge of the dining room, the only black waitress on staff, her hand instinctively tightening around the silver serving tray. 3 months she'd endured the sidelong glances, the accidental bumps from other servers, the whispered doubts about whether she belonged here. "I believe there's a problem with table 7, whispered Michel, the maitre d', his French accent thickening with displeasure. The billionaire. Fix it. But when Ava approached, she realized this wasn't about a complaint. Ethan Thornhill, tech visionary, recluse, the man whose face rarely appeared in the papers despite his $40 billion fortune, was staring at the dish like he'd seen a ghost. "This flavor profile," he said, his voice barely audible. "This isn't on your menu. This isn't Chef Lauren's creation." His eyes, sharp and pale blue, locked onto hers. Who made this? Heat crept up Ava's neck. The sous chef had called in sick. The kitchen was short-staffed. And when the order for table 7 came in, a special request that wasn't on the menu, Ava had made a decision that would cost her this job. "I did, sir." Her voice didn't waver, though her heart hammered against her ribs. "I apologize if it wasn't to your liking." The restaurant seemed to hold its breath. Chef Laurent emerged from the kitchen, his face already flushed with anger. Thornhill set down his fork with precise care. "Where did you learn to make this?" Behind her, Ava could feel Laurent approaching, could sense her imminent firing, the end of the job she needed to keep the lights on in her apartment. But she lifted her chin slightly. "My mother taught me." Something flashed across Thornhill's face. Recognition. Confusion. The beginning of a realization that drained the color from his features. "Your mother," he repeated. "What was her name?" Before Ava could answer, Laurent reached them, his voice tight with controlled rage. "Mr. Thornhill, I assure you this is not how we operate. This person will be terminated immediately for this unauthorized." "Her name," Thornhill interrupted, still staring at Ava, "was Eleanor, wasn't it?" The serving tray nearly slipped from Ava's suddenly numb fingers. No one knew her mother's name here. She'd never mentioned it, not to anyone at Lumiere. "How did you?" "Double the bill," Thornhill said, rising from his chair with the abrupt motion of someone who had spent his life being obeyed. "And ensure that every penny of that increase goes directly to her." He pointed at Ava, then turned to Laurent. "And if you're considering terminating the only person in your kitchen who understands true flavor memory, I suggest you reconsider." The entire restaurant watched as he withdrew a business card from his suit pocket and extended it toward Ava. "I need to speak with you. Privately. Tomorrow." As she took the card, their fingers brushed, and Ava felt a jolt of recognition, though she was certain they'd never met. His eyes held something too complex to name: grief, guilt, and perhaps, most surprisingly, fear. In that moment, Ava understood 2 things with perfect clarity. The dish she prepared, her mother's signature recipe, the one her mother had sworn would change everything someday, had just altered the course of her life. And Ethan Thornhill knew exactly why. Hey there, amazing viewers. I hope you're enjoying this story from wherever you're watching. Are you sitting at the edge of your seat yet? I know I am. If you're loving this tale of hidden recipes and mysterious billionaires, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now. I'd love to know where you're watching from and what you think might happen next. Drop it in the comments below. Now, let's get back to Ava and the dish that's about to turn her world upside down. The night air bit at Ava's cheeks as she left Lumiere, her shift finally over at 1:30 a.m. Behind her, the restaurant staff buzzed with gossip about what they were already calling the Thornhill incident. What they didn't know, couldn't know, was that nothing about tonight was accidental. Ava slipped Thornhill's business card from her pocket, studying the embossed lettering under a street lamp. Ethan Thornhill, CEO, Nexus Technologies. A simple phone number beneath. No email, no address. A man who preferred barriers between himself and the world. Did he really give you his personal card? Ava turned to see James Kim, the bartender, lighting a cigarette in the alley. The only person at Lumiere who'd shown her any kindness in 3 months. Doesn't seem like your type, he added with a half-smile. Billionaires with God complexes. We have history, Ava said, then caught herself. Or at least, our families do. James raised an eyebrow, but didn't press. That's what she appreciated about him. He never demanded explanations. Lauren was apoplectic after you left the floor. Kept mumbling about insubordination while simultaneously trying to reverse engineer your dish. Let me guess. He failed. Spectacularly. James blew a smoke ring into the cold air. What did you put in that sauce? Ava zipped her jacket higher. Family secret. The subway ride to Harlem felt longer than usual, her mind replaying the shock on Thornhill's face. When she finally reached her apartment, a 5th-floor walk-up with temperamental heating, she headed straight for the trunk at the foot of her bed. Inside lay her mother's legacy, a weathered leather-bound recipe book, its pages yellowed and stained with decades of cooking. Eleanor Sparrow had been a culinary genius whose career ended abruptly when Ava was just 7. Creative differences, her mother had called it, before taking a job at a school cafeteria and never cooking professionally again. Ava ran her fingers over her mother's elegant handwriting, stopping at the recipe she'd prepared tonight. Redemption ribs, her mother had named it privately, though on the Lumiere menu, a similar dish was called bourbon braised short ribs. Next to the recipe, in the margin, her mother had written, asterisk he'll remember. When the time comes, he'll know asterisk. Ava had spent 10 years wondering who he was, following breadcrumbs her mother left behind before cancer took her. Tonight, she finally had her answer, Ethan Thornhill. Her phone lit up with a text from a number she didn't recognize. Asterisk the Somerset Hotel, Penthouse. 10 a.m. tomorrow. Security will expect you. E.T. asterisk. Her hand tightened around the phone. 10 years of searching, of piecing together her mother's fragmented history, of wondering why Eleanor had kept newspaper clippings about Thornhill's rise to power. I found him, Mom, she whispered to the empty apartment. Just like you said I would. On her nightstand sat a small voice recorder, innocent-looking, but capable of capturing hours of conversation. Beside it, a folder containing every scrap of information she'd gathered. Old photographs, news articles, legal documents her mother had hidden in a safety deposit box. Ava wasn't just a waitress who could cook. She was her mother's daughter, the keeper of secrets that had destroyed Eleanor Sparrow's career and, ultimately, her life. Tomorrow, Ethan Thornhill would discover that recipes weren't the only things Ava had inherited from her mother. The Somerset Hotel towered over Central Park, its penthouse invisible from a street, accessible only by a private elevator that required a special keycard. Ava arrived 5 minutes early, dressed in a simple black blazer and jeans, professional but not trying too hard. Miss Sparrow, said the concierge, a woman with perfect posture and calculated warmth. Mr. Thornhill is expecting you. The elevator rose silently, giving Ava time to activate the recorder in her pocket. Whatever happened next needed documentation. Her heart pounded as the doors opened directly into the penthouse, an expanse of glass and steel with Manhattan sprawled beneath it like a living map. You're punctual, said Thornhill, standing by a floor-to-ceiling window. In daylight, he looked older than his 52 years, his face lined with the kind of exhaustion sleep couldn't cure. A restaurant habit, Ava replied. Time costs money in the kitchen. He gestured to a table where breakfast waited, including, she noted with surprise, a perfect replica of her mother's cinnamon rolls. Her throat tightened. You've been researching me, she said, remaining standing. As you've been researching me. His eyes met hers. Don't look surprised. Security at Lumiere provided your employment application. 3 months ago, you left a promising position at Savoy in Chicago to take a step down as a waitress here. The same week, I made my annual reservation. Ava's mouth went dry. You think I targeted you? I know you did. Thornhill sat down, surprisingly calm. What I don't know is why Eleanor Sparrow's daughter would wait tables for 3 months just to serve me one dish. You knew my mother. I knew her work, he corrected. Your mother was brilliant, revolutionary even, and yet somehow ended up cooking mystery meat in a Harlem school cafeteria. Ava couldn't keep the edge from her voice. Funny how that happened. Something flashed in Thornhill's eyes. Recognition, perhaps regret. Please sit. I've spent 15 years looking for that recipe. Why? It's just food. We both know that's not true. He gestured again to the chair. That dish was a message. One only I would understand. Against her better judgment, Ava sat. What kind of message? Instead of answering, Thornhill reached into a drawer and withdrew a photograph. He slid it across the table. Ava's breath caught. It showed a group of 5 people in chef's whites, standing in a kitchen she didn't recognize. Her mother, younger and radiant, stood in the center. Beside her was a younger Thornhill, his arm around Eleanor's shoulders. 15 years ago, he said quietly, your mother led the most innovative kitchen in America. A test kitchen funded by private investors, developing recipes that would revolutionize the culinary world. I don't understand, Ava said, though a sick feeling was growing in her stomach. My mother never mentioned. Because she signed an NDA so restrictive that breaking it would have meant financial ruin. Thornhill's voice hardened. She also signed away her intellectual property. Everything she created belonged to the company. Your company, Ava realized. Not then. I was just another chef. Like your mother. His finger tapped the photograph. But unlike Eleanor, I was ambitious. Ruthless even. The pieces began falling into place. You stole her recipes. It's more complicated than that. Thornhill met her gaze directly. I commercialized them. Built an empire on techniques she developed. Became the public face while the true creator was erased. Ava's hands shook with rage. Why are you telling me this? Do you expect forgiveness? No, he said simply. I expect consequences. That's why you're here, isn't it? To expose me. Before Ava could respond, the elevator doors opened. A woman in an impeccable suit stepped out. Sophia Hayes, Thornhill's notorious PR director, known for burying scandals before they reached the public. You're late, Thornhill said to Sophia, not taking his eyes off Ava. Traffic. Sophia assessed Ava with a calculating gaze. Is this her? This is Eleanor's daughter. Sophia's expression shifted, almost imperceptibly. I see the resemblance. What is this? Ava demanded, suddenly feeling trapped. This, said Thornhill, is an opportunity for truth. After 15 years of silence. He turned to Sophia. Tell Miss Sparrow what you found. Sophia hesitated, then placed a tablet on the table. On it was a contract dated 15 years ago, bearing Eleanor Sparrow's signature. Your mother didn't just create recipes, Sophia explained. She pioneered a flavor enhancement technique that became the foundation of Nexus Technologies' first product line. Food tech, Thornhill clarified. Not restaurants. Software that could predict flavor combinations, optimize recipes for mass production while maintaining quality. Ava's mind raced. The dish I made last night was embedded with a pattern only the original algorithm would recognize, Thornhill finished. A digital fingerprint your mother built into her most personal recipes. A fingerprint I've been trying to recreate for 15 years without success. Because you're not her, Ava said. No, he agreed. I'm not. Sophia slid another document across the table, a check with more zeros than Ava had ever seen. This is our initial offer, for the recipe and your silence. Ava stared at the check, then slowly tore it in half. I didn't come for money. Then what do you want? Sophia asked. Ava stood, her decision made. Justice. The confrontation at the penthouse changed everything. Instead of returning to Lumiere that night, Ava found herself at Nexus Technologies headquarters, being escorted through security to a laboratory that occupied the entire 42nd floor. This is where we test the algorithms, Thornhill explained as they passed workstations filled with screens displaying molecular structures. Your mother's original code is the foundation, But we hit a wall years ago. Without her, Ava surmised. Without her, he agreed. Scientists looked up as they passed, curiosity in their eyes. Ava felt out of place in her waitress clothes among PhDs and tech wizards, but she refused to be intimidated. "Why am I here?" she asked as Thornhill led her to a private office. "Because I need what you have." He indicated her bag, where her mother's recipe book sat. "And you need what I have." Which is the truth. Access to your mother's work, and the platform to restore her legacy. Sophia Hayes materialized beside them, her expression carefully neutral. "What Mr. Thornhill means is that we're prepared to negotiate terms for your consultation." "You think I'll help the man who stole my mother's life's work?" Ava laughed bitterly. "I think," Thornhill said quietly, "that you'll want to see this." He unlocked a door with his thumbprint, revealing a smaller lab. Unlike the open workspace outside, this room felt intimate, almost like a kitchen. In the center stood an island counter with cooking equipment alongside scientific instruments. "Eleanor's original workspace," Thornhill explained. "I've preserved it." Ava's anger faltered. On the wall hung photographs, dozens of them, documenting her mother's work. Eleanor laughing with colleagues, demonstrating techniques, receiving awards Ava had never known about. "She was our North Star," said a new voice. A tall, elegant woman with silver hair entered from another door. Dr. Vivian Rodriguez, whose name Ava recognized from her research, a molecular gastronomist, whose papers were cited in the limited information available about Nexus's early days. "Your mother was brilliant beyond measure," Vivian continued, extending her hand. "I was her lab partner." "And remained loyal to her," Thornhill added, "even when I didn't." The admission hung in the air, heavy with implication. "What happened?" Ava asked, directing the question to Vivian rather than Thornhill. "The real story." Vivian glanced at Thornhill, who nodded slightly. "We were 5 chefs with scientific backgrounds," Vivian explained, gesturing to the group photo Ava had seen earlier. "Working on what we called culinary algorithms, ways to predict how flavors would interact, how to optimize textures, how to make good food accessible to everyone." "Eleanor was our head chef," Thornhill said. "I was her second in command." "And her lover," Vivian added bluntly. Ava's eyes widened. "What?" "Briefly," Thornhill clarified, looking uncomfortable. "Before everything fell apart. The investors wanted commercialization," Vivian continued. "Fast food applications, preservation techniques, shelf-stable versions that maintained flavor profiles. Eleanor refused. She believed food should bring people together, not be processed and packaged," Thornhill said. "She was right morally. But financially, you chose money over principles," Ava finished for him. "I chose survival," he corrected. "The investors were pulling out. We were weeks away from losing everything. I convinced 3 of the 5 team members to side with me. We outvoted Eleanor and took control of her work," Ava said, the pieces fitting together. "That's what the NDA was about." "She could have fought," Thornhill said, his voice tight with what sounded like regret. "But then you got sick." Ava froze. "What? You don't remember? You were 7. Pneumonia, hospitalized for weeks." Thornhill's expression softened. "Eleanor needed money for your medical bills. That's why she took the settlement." The revelation hit Ava like a physical blow. All these years, she'd built an image of her mother as a victim, never knowing Eleanor had made her choice, chosen Ava over her career. "The settlement was generous," Sophia interjected, ever the PR professional. "But not fair," Thornhill admitted. "Not even close to what her contributions were worth." Vivian placed a hand on Ava's arm. "Your mother didn't just create recipes. She created a new way of understanding food at a molecular level. What Thornhill turned into a tech empire was just the commercial application of her vision." "And now you need me," Ava said, understanding dawning. "Because something's wrong with the algorithm." Thornhill nodded. "It's degrading. The results are increasingly flawed, like a photocopy of a photocopy. We need the original source code, which my mother built into her recipes," Ava realized. "Like the one I made last night." "Exactly." Thornhill looked at her with something like hope. "I'm offering you a chance to reclaim your mother's legacy." Work with us. Help us recover what was lost. And in return, full recognition of Eleanor Sparrow's contributions, a foundation in her name, and 30% ownership of Nexus Technologies. Sophia made a small, pained noise. Mr. Thornhill, the board will never. The board doesn't need to know until it's done, he cut her off. This isn't negotiable, Sophia. Ava looked around the laboratory, her mother's space, trying to process everything. I need time to think. Of course, Thornhill agreed. But we don't have much time. The algorithm failures are accelerating. If we don't find a solution soon, everything your mother built will be lost forever. As Ava left the building an hour later, her head spinning with revelations, her phone buzzed with a text from James, the bartender. Loron fired 2 line cooks for trying to recreate your dish. He's obsessed. Also, someone's been asking about you. A woman named Claudia Reeves. Says she used to work with your mother, Ava stopped in her tracks. Claudia Reeves, the 5th person in the photograph, the one Thornhill hadn't mentioned. What Ava didn't see was the dark sedan that pulled away from the curb as she hailed a taxi, or the woman inside it taking her photograph. Nor could she know that across town, a secret board meeting of Nexus Technologies was voting on a resolution that would change everything. A resolution about Eleanor Sparrow's intellectual property and the threat posed by her daughter. The game was bigger than Ava realized, and more dangerous. Claudia Reeves wasn't difficult to find. Ava tracked her to a small bakery in Brooklyn, a hole-in-the-wall place with a line stretching around the block. Taste memory, read the simple sign. The irony not lost on Ava as she stepped inside, bypassing the queue with a confident nod to the cashier. I'm here to see Claudia, she said, sliding a note across the counter. Tell her Eleanor Sparrow's daughter is waiting. 5 minutes later, Ava sat in a cramped office behind the kitchen, face to face with the 5th person from the photograph. Claudia Reeves had aged gracefully, her dark skin lined with laugh wrinkles, her chef's coat immaculate despite the flour dust that seemed to coat everything in the bakery. I wondered when you'd find me, Claudia said, studying Ava with sharp eyes. You look just like her. Everyone keeps saying that, Ava replied. Yet somehow, I never knew who she really was. Claudia's expression softened. Eleanor was many things. A genius, a fighter, but above all a mother. She gestured to the small office. This bakery exists because of her. Did you know that? Ava shook her head. The settlement money, she invested half of it here. Made me promise to build something authentic, something that couldn't be commercialized or mass-produced. Claudia's eyes gleamed with pride. We bake everything fresh every day. No shortcuts, no substitutions. The opposite of what Nexus Technology stands for, Ava realized. Exactly. Claudia leaned forward. So why are you meeting with Ethan Thornhill? Ava stiffened. How did you? I still have friends in that world. Word travels fast when a billionaire CEO clears his schedule for a waitress. Claudia's voice held no judgment, only concern. Whatever he's offering you, Ava, be careful. Ethan always has an agenda. He says the algorithm is failing, that they need my mother's original recipes to fix it. Claudia went very still. Did he use those exact words? That it's failing? Yes. Why? Instead of answering directly, Claudia stood and locked the office door. From a filing cabinet, she extracted a worn leather portfolio and placed it on the desk between them. Before your mother signed that NDA, before she accepted the settlement, she made copies of everything. Claudia tapped the portfolio. Her research journals, test results, the original code architecture, everything that made her algorithm revolutionary. Ava's heart raced. She kept evidence. Insurance, Claudia corrected. In case they ever tried to come after her again. Or, in case you ever needed to know the truth. With trembling fingers, Ava opened the portfolio. Inside were hundreds of pages of notes, diagrams, and what appeared to be code, all in her mother's handwriting. The algorithm isn't failing, Claudia said quietly. It's evolving. What do you mean? Eleanor built a learning component into the original code, something that would allow it to adapt over time, to improve itself based on user feedback. Something only she understood fully. Claudia's eyes locked with Ava's. Something that's about to reach completion. Completion of what? The ultimate goal, complete flavor prediction. The ability to replicate any taste experience perfectly, from memory alone. Claudia's voice dropped to a whisper. Do you understand what that's worth? Billions. Possibly trillions. Ava's mind reeled. And Thornhill knows this? He suspects. But only your mother understood the final step. The key that unlocks the algorithm's full potential. Which she encoded in her recipes, Ava whispered, finally understanding. Not just any recipes. Specific ones with emotional significance. Claudia nodded. Recipes that contained memory triggers for her, like the dish you served Thornhill. But why would she hide something so valuable in recipes? Because food was her language. And because she knew that someday you might need leverage. Claudia reached across the desk, gripping Ava's hand. Your mother didn't just leave you recipes, Ava. She left you a weapon. As if on cue, Ava's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Asterisk, you're meeting with the wrong person. Claudia can't be trusted. Come back to Nexus immediately. E.T. asterisk. Seconds later, another text arrived. This one from James. Asterisk, where are you? People came to your apartment. They took things. I tried to stop them. Asterisk. Claudia saw the color drain from Ava's face. What is it? They're moving faster than I thought, Ava said, showing her the messages. They're desperate, Claudia agreed. The algorithm is reaching its completion cycle. Whoever controls the final key controls everything. She stood, decisive. We need to go. Now. Where? Somewhere they won't look. Claudia grabbed her coat. Do you have your mother's recipe book with you? Ava patted her bag. Always. Good. Because what Thornhill doesn't know is that the dish you served him, it was only the first part of a 3-part sequence. Your mother built a failsafe that requires all 3 dishes to be prepared in exact order, within a specific time frame. How do you know this? Claudia smiled sadly. Because I helped her design it. The 5 of us, we weren't just colleagues, Ava. We were family. Until Ethan betrayed us all. As they slipped out the back door of the bakery, neither woman noticed the sleek black car parked across the street, or the man inside speaking urgently into his phone. She's with Claudia Reeves, he reported. And she has the book. On the other end of the line, Sophia Hayes' voice was cold. Follow them. Do not engage. I'll inform the board. In her Nexus office, Sophia hung up and turned to the man sitting across from her. Not Ethan Thornhill, but James Kim, the bartender from Lumiere, looking decidedly more polished in an expensive suit. You were right, Sophia acknowledged. She went straight to Claudia. James nodded, his expression grim. Thornhill's emotional connection to Eleanor is compromising his judgment. The board was right to intervene. And Ava? Can she be persuaded? James hesitated, remembering the determination in Ava's eyes whenever she spoke about her mother. No, he finally said. Not with words, anyway. Sophia sighed. Then we moved to contingency plan B. Prepare the test kitchen. The rain started as Claudia and Ava reached the safe house, an old brownstone in a quiet corner of Queens. Inside, the building had been converted into a state-of-the-art test kitchen, hidden in plain sight. My backup location, Claudia explained, flipping on lights to reveal gleaming steel counters and specialized equipment. Funded by your mother's investment. We have everything we need here to complete the sequence. Ava circled the kitchen, recognizing elements from both high-end restaurants and scientific laboratories. This isn't just a kitchen. It's a workshop, Claudia agreed, for culinary innovation outside corporate control. As Ava examined the space, her phone buzzed again. This time, it was a video message from James. She opened it, Claudia peering over her shoulder. The video showed James in what appeared to be a holding cell. His face was bruised, one eye swollen shut. Ava, he gasped, don't trust anyone at Nexus. Not Thornhill, not Vivian, no one. They're not after the recipe, they're after you. Your mother built the final key into your genetic code. That's why the video cut off abruptly. My genetic code? Ava whispered. What does that mean? Claudia's expression darkened. It means the situation is worse than I thought. Eleanor theorized that taste perception was partially genetic, that certain flavor combinations could only be properly perceived by individuals with specific genetic markers. Like a biological password? Exactly. The ultimate security system. The algorithm needs not just the recipes, but someone with the right genetic makeup to prepare them. Claudia looked at Ava with new understanding. She made sure only her child could unlock it. And James? How does he know this? That's what we need to find out. Claudia began pulling ingredients from hidden refrigerators. But first, we prepare the second dish in the sequence. Time is running out. For the next 2 hours, they worked in focused silence, Ava following her mother's recipe to the letter, while Claudia prepared accompanying components. The dish, a seemingly simple soup with complex layers of flavor, required precise temperature control and timing. As they finished, Claudia's phone chimed with an alert from the security system. "Someone's here," she said, checking the camera feed. Her face paled. "It's Thornhill. And he's not alone." The monitor showed Ethan Thornhill approaching the front door, flanked by Vivian Rodriguez and 2 men in tactical gear. "How did they find us?" Ava demanded. Claudia looked grim. "The only way they could have. Someone tracked your phone." Ava pulled out her device, suddenly understanding. The text from James. They weren't from him at all. A pounding at the door echoed through the house. "Claudia." Thornhill's voice called. "We know you're in there. Open up." Claudia moved swiftly, grabbing Ava's hand. "The back exit. There's a tunnel that leads to the subway. Take the recipe book and go." "What about you?" "I'll stall them." Claudia pressed a key into Ava's palm. "This opens a storage locker at Grand Central. Inside is everything you need to finish this, including the truth about your mother and Thornhill. I can't just leave you. You have to. If they get both of us, it's over." Claudia's eyes blazed with determination. "Your mother gave up everything to protect you and her work. Don't let that sacrifice be in vain." A crash from the front of the house indicated the door had been breached. "Go," Claudia urged, pushing Ava toward the hidden exit. Ava ran, clutching her bag with the recipe book. Behind her, she heard Claudia confronting the intruders. "Ethan," Claudia's voice rang out. "Still hiding behind hired muscle, I see." "Where is she, Claudia?" Thornhill's voice was tense, urgent. "Safe from you." A slap echoed through the house, followed by Vivian's cold voice. "Enough games. Where's the girl?" Ava wanted to turn back, but forced herself to keep moving. The tunnel was narrow and damp, stretching for what felt like hundreds of yards before opening into a maintenance area of the subway system. Emerging onto a crowded platform, Ava blended with the evening commuters, her mind racing. Who could she trust? Not Thornhill. Not Nexus. And if James had been compromised? The answer came in a memory, something her mother had told her years ago, when Ava had asked why they never had family around. "Sometimes, the people who should protect us are the ones we need protection from. But there's always someone you can trust. Look for the person who has nothing to gain." As the subway car lurched into motion, Ava made her decision. There was one person in this story who had remained consistent, one person whose motives seemed transparent. Laurent, the chef at Lumiere. He might hate her for going off menu, might even have fired her by now, but he had no connection to Nexus or her mother's past. And he had something she desperately needed, a professional kitchen where she could prepare the final dish. What Ava couldn't know was that across town, James Kim was indeed imprisoned, not by Nexus, but by Thornhill himself, in a panic room beneath his penthouse. "I told you to watch her, not fall for her," Thornhill snapped, pacing before the battered bartender. "I didn't plan to," James admitted, wincing as he touched his split lip. "But Sophia offered me more than your protection. She offered me a seat on the board if I delivered Ava and the algorithm. Sophia doesn't have that authority. The board gave it to her when they voted to remove you as CEO this morning." James met Thornhill's shock stare. "You've been so focused on finding Eleanor's daughter that you missed the coup happening under your nose." Thornhill collapsed into a chair, the weight of betrayal heavy on his shoulders. "Then why are you here? Why not deliver Ava to Sophia?" James looked away. Because somewhere between pretending to care about her and actually getting to know her, I stopped pretending. You developed a conscience. Inconvenient timing. Says the man who built an empire on someone else's work. Thornhill's eyes flashed with anger, then resignation. I deserve that. But this isn't about me anymore. If Sophia gets control of the completed algorithm, what happens? James demanded. What is this really about? Power, Thornhill said simply. Eleanor's algorithm wasn't just about food. It was about understanding human perception, how the brain processes sensory input, how memories connect to experiences. In the right hands, it revolutionizes everything from medicine to education. And in the wrong hands? In the wrong hands, it becomes the most sophisticated manipulation tool ever created. Imagine being able to engineer experiences that trigger specific emotional responses, predictably, repeatedly. Thornhill's voice dropped. Sophia doesn't want to fix food. She wants to fix people. James absorbed this, his expression hardening. So what do? We find Ava before they do, Thornhill said, standing. And we help her complete what her mother started. Lauren's face registered shock, then suspicion, when Ava appeared at Lumiere's service entrance at 11 p.m. You've got nerve showing up here, he said, blocking the doorway. After that stunt with Thornhill. I need your kitchen, Ava said, cutting to the chase. For 3 hours. No questions asked. Lauren laughed bitterly. Why would I agree to that? Because I'll show you how I made the dish that impressed Thornhill. Ava held his gaze. The complete recipe. His professional curiosity battled with pride. And what do you get out of this arrangement? Protection, she said simply. There are people looking for me. Dangerous people. Something in her tone must have convinced him. Lauren glanced over his shoulder at the empty kitchen, then stepped aside. 3 hours, he agreed. And I observe everything. Ava worked methodically, following her mother's instructions for the third and final dish, an elaborate dessert that combined unexpected elements into a harmonious whole. Lauren watched, occasionally asking technical questions, but mostly observing with growing respect. This is not classical technique, he noted, as Ava incorporated a reduction that shouldn't have emulsified but somehow did. No, Ava agreed. It's something else entirely. As she worked, she explained the situation in broad strokes, leaving out the details about algorithms and genetic keys, focusing instead on the corporate theft of her mother's work. Lauren, whose own recipes had been copied by competitors, found himself sympathetic. So this Thornhill, he steals your mother's work, builds an empire, then comes looking for you when he needs the missing piece. Lauren shook his head in disgust. Typical corporate vampire. It's more complicated than that, Ava admitted, carefully tempering chocolate that shimmered with an unusual iridescence. He and my mother, they had history. Ah, Lauren said knowingly. The heart complicates everything. As she completed the dessert, a delicate construction that resembled a terrarium, complete with edible soil and crystalline plants, the service door burst open. Lauren reached for a knife, but froze when Sophia Hayes entered, flanked by security personnel. Ms. Sparrow, Sophia said coolly. You're a difficult woman to find. How did you find you? Your phone has been broadcasting your location since you left the safe house. Sophia smiled thinly. A simple hack, really. Lauren stepped between them. This is my kitchen. You're trespassing. Sophia barely glanced at him. Chef Lauren Nexus Technologies is prepared to offer you exclusive rights to 6 patented flavor profiles in exchange for your cooperation. The chef hesitated, and in that moment of betrayal, Ava saw her escape route closing. She's making something valuable, Lauren said slowly. Something worth more than 6 patents, I think. Sophia's smile widened. Name your price. My restaurant, Lauren replied without hesitation. Full ownership, debt-free. Done, Sophia agreed. Now step aside. As Lauren moved away, shame flickering across his face, Ava's heart sank. Another betrayal. Another person choosing self-interest over principle. The dessert, Sophia instructed her security team. Secure it. It won't work, Ava said as they approached. Not without me. Oh, we're taking you too, Sophia assured her. The board is quite interested in meeting Eleanor Sparrow's daughter. One of the security men grabbed Ava's arm. She struggled, knocking over a tray of utensils with a crash. Enough, Sophia snapped. Sedate her if necessary. That won't be necessary, came a new voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see Ethan Thornhill standing there, looking disheveled but determined. Behind him stood James, his face bruised but his stance ready for confrontation. Ethan, Sophia said, recovering quickly. The board will be disappointed to learn you're interfering with company operations after your removal. The board doesn't know the truth, Thornhill replied, stepping into the kitchen. About Eleanor. About the algorithm. About what you really plan to do with it. And you do. Sophia challenged. I know enough. His eyes found Ava's. I know Eleanor built safeguards into her work that none of us understood. Safeguards designed to prevent exactly what you're planning. Sophia laughed, the sound cold and dismissive. Safeguards can be overcome, especially with the Creator's daughter in our possession. As they argued, Ava's attention fixed on the completed dessert. Something was happening to it. The crystalline structures were changing, refracting light in shifting patterns. It was responding to the voices in the room, she realized with sudden clarity. The final dish wasn't just food, it was a sensor, designed to record information. Her mother's voice seemed to whisper in her memory. The true purpose of food is connection, Ava. It brings people together, reveals their true natures. In that moment, Ava understood. The 3D-ish sequence wasn't just about unlocking an algorithm. It was about documenting the truth, creating an unalterable record of what really happened 15 years ago. And what was happening now? Stop, Ava said, her voice cutting through the tension. All eyes turned to her. This ends now. With deliberate movements, she reached for the dessert, lifting it carefully. The crystalline structures pulsed with light, responding to her touch. This dish is the final key, she announced. And I'm activating it. Right now. Don't be foolish, Sophia warned. You have no idea what you're dealing with. Actually, Ava countered, I think I'm the only one who does. She looked directly at Thornhill. My mother built this sequence not to complete the algorithm, but to reveal the truth about it. About all of you. The dessert in her hands was glowing now, the patterns shifting more rapidly. The first dish was recognition, Ava continued. It identified Thornhill through his biological response to the flavor profile. James moved to her side, his expression a mixture of awe and concern. What's happening to it? The second dish, prepared with Claudia, was documentation, recording everything that's happened since this began. Ava's confidence grew as pieces fell into place. And this final dish? It's revelation. With a decisive motion, she placed the dessert on the central counter. The crystalline structures exploded into a shower of light that resolved into a holographic display, projecting documents, video recordings, and data streams onto every surface of the kitchen. There was Eleanor's original research, contracts with sections highlighted, security footage from Nexus Laboratories, board meeting minutes discussing acquisition of full intellectual control, a complete documentary record of the theft of her mother's work. What is this? Sophia demanded, backing away from images of herself in secret meetings with board members, discussing behavioral modification applications and perception control. Insurance, Ava said, echoing Claudia's words. My mother knew someday someone would try to weaponize her work. So she created this, a self-documenting system that would activate when all 3 dishes were prepared in sequence. The security team looked uncertainly at Sophia, whose composure was crumbling as more damning evidence appeared around them. This is corporate espionage, Sophia tried, her voice lacking conviction. None of this would stand up in court. It doesn't need to, Thornhill said, understanding dawning on his face. It just needs to reach the board. And the press. Lauren, who had been watching in stunned silence, suddenly laughed. This is better than any reality show. The algorithm was never failing, Ava said to Thornhill. That was a lie to draw me out. But my mother did build in a failsafe. If anyone tried to use it for anything beyond its intended purpose, it would expose them. James touched her arm gently. You knew this would happen? When you made the dessert. I hoped, Ava admitted. I didn't understand everything until now. My mother left me breadcrumbs, not a map. As the evidence continued to materialize around them, Sophia's phone began ringing incessantly. Board members, no doubt, receiving the same information being projected in the kitchen. This isn't over, Sophia hissed, backing toward the door. The algorithm is still valuable. The company still controls the patents. Not anymore, said a new voice. Everyone turned to see Claudia Reeves in the doorway, bruised but unbowed, holding a tablet. While you were chasing Ava, I was filing paperwork with the patent office. Emergency injunctions based on fraudulent acquisition. She smiled tightly at Thornhill. Eleanor prepared for this day, Ethan. All of it. As Sophia and her security team retreated, Ava felt a weight lifting, the burden of uncertainty, of not knowing who to trust. She looked at the holographic evidence surrounding them, her mother's genius, made visible in light and data. What happens now? She asked the room at large. Now, Claudia said firmly, we finish what Eleanor started. James slipped his hand into Ava's, a gesture of support that felt suddenly right. Together, he added softly. Thornhill watched the exchange, something like approval in his eyes. First, he said, I have something that belongs to you, Ava. Something your mother would want you to have. From his pocket, he withdrew a small, worn leather-bound notebook. Eleanor's original research journal, the one that started everything. As Ava accepted it, feeling the weight of legacy in her hands, the holographic display shifted again, revealing one last message, written in her mother's handwriting. Asterisk for my daughter, who will finish what I started. Truth, like the perfect dish, requires the right ingredients, precise timing, and above all, love. I've given you the recipe. The rest is up to you. Asterisk. Dawn broke over Manhattan as the fallout from Ava's revelation spread like wildfire. The dessert-turned evidence vault had transmitted its contents not just to the Nexus board, but to major news outlets, regulatory agencies, and patent offices worldwide. Overnight, Eleanor Sparrow's name had gone from footnote to headline. Ava hadn't slept. In Lauren's kitchen, which he'd offered as a temporary sanctuary after witnessing the power of what she created, she sat with James, Claudia, and Thornhill, planning their next move. Sophia won't surrender easily, Thornhill warned, studying his phone. The board's divided. Half want to cut losses and acknowledge Eleanor's contributions. The other half, led by Sophia, are claiming corporate sabotage and preparing legal action. Against what? Claudia scoffed. The truth. Against all of us, James said quietly. I've seen Sophia's contingency plans. She's methodical. Laurent appeared with coffee, his demeanor transformed from adversary to ally after witnessing the night's events. Your mother's dessert crashed my restaurant servers. Too many people trying to access the data. It's everywhere now. Ava looked up from her mother's journal, which she'd been studying intensely. There's more, she said. The algorithm was never just about food. What do you mean? Thornhill asked, leaning forward. My mother's original vision wasn't commercial at all. It was medical. Ava turned the journal, showing pages of notes about neural pathways and sensory processing. She was trying to develop a way to help people with sensory processing disorders, particularly children, to help them navigate a world that overwhelmed them. James looked stunned. Not corporate food engineering. That came later, Ava said, giving Thornhill a pointed look. After the investors got involved. Thornhill had the grace to look ashamed. I didn't know. She never shared that part with me. Because she knew you'd commercialize it, Claudia said. Eleanor was developing a therapeutic tool. You turned it into a profit engine. Before the conversation could continue, Lauren's security system chimed. On the monitor, they saw a fleet of black SUVs pulling up outside the restaurant. Nexus Security, James identified. Sophia's private team. And not alone, Laurent added as another feed showed police vehicles arriving. They've brought official backup. Thornhill cursed under his breath. Sophia's spinning this as theft of corporate secrets. She's always been good at manipulating the system. Ava stood, suddenly decisive. Let them come. What? Claudia looked alarmed. Ava, they'll arrest you. No, they won't. Ava held up her mother's journal. Because I'm about to complete what my mother started. The algorithm's true purpose. She moved to the kitchen counter, where the remnants of last night's dessert still glimmered with faint light. From her bag, she withdrew a small vial, the contents of the storage locker Claudia had directed her to. What is that? James asked. The final ingredient. My mother's blood sample, preserved all these years. Ava looked at their shocked faces. And mine. The genetic key isn't just about taste perception. It's about intent. Understanding dawned on Thornhill's face. The algorithm requires the right genetic signature and the right motivation. Eleanor built a moral component into it. Exactly, Ava confirmed. It can only be fully activated by someone with both her genetic markers and a purpose aligned with her original vision. A pounding at the door echoed through the restaurant. Nexus Technology Security. Open up. We're out of time, Laurent said nervously. Ava carefully added drops from the vial to the crystalline remains of the dessert. The structure began to pulse with renewed light, more intense than before. I need to finish the sequence, she said. Keep them out for 2 more minutes. As James and Thornhill barricaded the door, Ava closed her eyes, her hands hovering over the glowing creation. This is for you, Mom, she whispered. The door crashed open. Sophia strode in, flanked by security personnel and uniformed officers. Ava Sparrow, Sophia announced triumphantly. You're under arrest for corporate espionage, intellectual property theft, and, she stopped, her eyes widening at the intensifying glow emanating from the dessert. What are you doing? Stop her. 2 security men rushed forward, but froze as the light from the dessert expanded, filling the room with a crystalline web of data, more complex and beautiful than the previous display. You're too late, Ava said calmly. The full algorithm is activated. Not your version, Sophia. The real one. My mother's original vision. On every surface, holographic displays showed children in therapeutic settings, responding to sensory stimuli, their neural patterns visibly changing, healing. Alongside these images were medical studies, clinical trials, success rates, 15 years of suppressed research suddenly made visible. What is this? Demanded one of the police officers, clearly confused. This, Thornhill said, stepping forward, is the true purpose of Eleanor Sparrow's work. Not flavor enhancement for processed foods or behavioral manipulation, but healing. Sophia's face contorted with rage. This means nothing. The company owns all intellectual property regardless of its application. Actually, came a new voice. That's not accurate. Everyone turned to see an elegant older woman entering the kitchen, accompanied by several distinguished-looking individuals in business attire. Diane Blackwood, Thornhill breathed in surprise. Chairwoman of the Nexus Board. Former chairwoman, Diane corrected. As of an emergency meeting at 4 a.m., I've resumed my position. She nodded toward Sophia. Ms. Hayes has been relieved of her duties, pending a full investigation into ethical violations. Sophia's composure cracked. You can't do this. The algorithm is worth billions. In the right application, Diane agreed, surveying the holographic displays with evident wonder. Which, it appears, was not the one you envisioned. She turned to Ava. Ms. Sparrow, I believe we have much to discuss about your mother's legacy. As the police escorted a seething Sophia from the premises, Diane approached Ava directly. I knew your mother briefly, before everything went wrong, she admitted. She was brilliant, uncompromising, and apparently far more far-sighted than any of us realized. She gestured to the displays. This therapy could help millions of children. Was that always her intent? Ava nodded. She developed the algorithm after I was diagnosed with sensory processing issues as a child. Her notes say she wanted to help me understand a world that sometimes overwhelmed me. She never meant for it to be commercialized. Yet Thornhill convinced us otherwise, Diane said, casting a cold glance at him. I was wrong, Thornhill admitted, surprising everyone with his candor. I saw dollar signs where Eleanor saw healing. but I'd like to make it right. How? Claudia demanded skeptically. Thornhill turned to Diane. The Eleanor Sparrow Foundation, fully funded by Nexus, but independently operated, dedicated to developing her therapeutic applications and making them accessible to everyone who needs them, regardless of ability to pay. Diane considered this. The board might agree, given the circumstances, especially with the right leadership. All eyes turned to Ava, who looked overwhelmed by the suggestion. I'm a chef, not a CEO, she protested. You're Eleanor's daughter, Claudia countered. And you've proven you understand her vision better than anyone. You wouldn't be alone, James added, his hand finding hers. Any of us would help, in whatever way we could. Ava looked around at the unlikely allies assembled in the kitchen. Thornhill, the man who had both betrayed and tried to honor her mother's legacy. Claudia, who had kept faith all these years. James, whose deception had transformed into genuine support. Lauren, whose kitchen had become the stage for revelation. And now Diane, offering a chance to truly fulfill her mother's vision. The holographic display shifted again, coalescing into a single image. The algorithm's complete form, a beautiful, intricate pattern resembling both a neural network and a recipe. Mom always said the perfect recipe brings people together, Ava murmured, touching the glowing pattern. I think this is what she meant. As she made contact, the pattern responded, transforming once more. This time, it displayed a message none of them expected, coordinates, a date, and a security code. What is that? Lauren asked, peering at the numbers. Thornhill's expression changed to one of astonishment. It's the location of Eleanor's private research facility, the one she was building before everything happened. He looked at Ava in wonder. She never abandoned her work. She just moved it somewhere we couldn't find it. Until now, Ava said, understanding blooming. Until the right person activated the algorithm with the right purpose. The implications hung in the air. 15 years of independent research, continued in secret, waiting to be discovered. It seems, Diane said softly, that Eleanor Sparrow's legacy is even more profound than we realized. As morning light streamed through the windows, illuminating the kitchen where so much had been revealed, Ava felt a sense of rightness settle over her. The recipe, her mother's true recipe for change, had finally been completed. So, James said, squeezing her hand, what happens next? Ava looked at the coordinates glowing in the air, then at the unlikely allies gathered around her. We finish what she started, she said, together. 1 year later, the Eleanor Sparrow Center for Sensory Innovation occupied a renovated warehouse on the Hudson River, its walls of glass reflecting the water and sky. Inside, the main atrium buzzed with activity. Scientists in one wing, chefs in another, medical professionals consulting with families in comfortable meeting rooms. Ava stood in the observation gallery, watching a session in progress below. A child who had previously been overwhelmed by sensory input was happily engaging with carefully calibrated experiences, guided by therapists using the fully realized algorithm, now called the Sparrow Protocol. 300 children helped in the first year alone, said James, joining her at the railing. Not bad for a waitress who went off menu. Ava smiled, leaning into him as his arms circled her waist. Their relationship had developed gradually over the past year, built on mutual respect, shared purpose, and eventually, love. The Tokyo Center opens next month, she reminded him, and London the month after that. Your mother would be proud, James said, kissing her temple. So am I. They made their way to the center's showcase kitchen, where Claudia was leading a demonstration for parents and therapists on creating sensory-adaptive meals for children with processing challenges. The key isn't masking flavors or textures, Claudia was explaining, but introducing them in sequences that build tolerance and even enjoyment. Eleanor's algorithm helps us predict which combinations will work best for each child's unique profile. As the participants tasted the sample dishes, their faces registered delight and wonder, the same expressions Ava had seen on Thornhill's face that fateful night at Lumiere, when everything changed. Speaking of Thornhill, he stood in a corner of the kitchen, deep in conversation with Diane Blackwood. No longer CEO of Nexus, He had accepted a position as advisor to the Sparrow Foundation, channeling his business acumen into expanding access to Eleanor's therapies worldwide. Redemption came in unexpected forms. Ms. Sparrow called one of the center's researchers, approaching with a tablet. The results from the latest trial are in. Efficacy rates above 90% across all age groups. Ava reviewed the data, satisfaction warming her. Send these to Dr. Rodriguez. She'll want to incorporate them into the next protocol update. Vivian Rodriguez had surprised everyone by resigning from Nexus to join the foundation, bringing decades of research experience and a desire to atone for her role in Eleanor's sidelining. Already done, the researcher confirmed. Oh, and Chef Laurent called. He wants to know if you'll consult on his new menu. He's incorporating sensory adaptive options for children with processing sensitivities. Tell him I'll be there next week, Ava said, smiling at how far they'd come from that first contentious night. As the afternoon progressed, Ava found herself drawn to the small memorial garden at the center's heart, a peaceful space dominated by a simple plaque bearing Eleanor Sparrow's name, dates, and the words that had become the foundation's motto. True nourishment feeds both body and mind. She sat on a bench, feeling the weight of her mother's journal in her bag, a constant companion this past year as she'd worked to bring Eleanor's vision to life. The journal was nearly full now, with Ava's own notes and discoveries added alongside her mother's. Room for one more? Asked a familiar voice. Ava looked up to see Claudia, wiping flour from her hands onto her chef's coat. Always, Ava said, patting the bench beside her. Claudia sat with a contented sigh. I was just thinking about that day in my bakery, when you first came looking for answers. Did you ever imagine we'd end up here? Not in my wildest dreams, Ava admitted. But I think, somehow, my mother did. Eleanor always played the long game, Claudia agreed. Even when it seemed like she'd lost everything. She never lost what mattered most, Ava said, touching the journal. She just planted seeds that needed time to grow. The evening sun cast long shadows across the garden as more people joined them. First James, then Thornhill, Diane, Vivian, and finally Laurent, who arrived with a basket of fresh pastries for the tea meeting. They gathered in the garden, this unlikely family forged through conflict and reconciliation, each bringing something essential to the foundation's work. As they shared food and ideas under the setting sun, Ava felt a sense of completion, not an ending, but the fulfillment of a promise. Later, as the others departed for their respective homes, James lingered in the garden with Ava. I have something for you, he said, producing a small, elegantly wrapped box. Inside lay a pendant, a miniature, crystalline structure reminiscent of a dessert that had changed everything, suspended in silver. It's beautiful, Ava breathed as he fastened it around her neck. Look closer, James urged. When she held it to the light, the crystal refracted into a pattern she recognized immediately, the core structure of her mother's algorithm, the pattern that had brought them all together. I had it made from a fragment of the original dessert, James explained. A reminder that sometimes the most powerful transformations come from the most unlikely ingredients. As the stars appeared overhead, Ava stood in the garden of the center that bore her mother's name, surrounded by the legacy Eleanor had entrusted to her. The algorithm, once nearly weaponized for corporate profit, now helped thousands of children navigate a world that had previously overwhelmed them. You know, James said, his arm around her shoulders, as they gazed at the illuminated building, your mother's recipe did exactly what great recipes are supposed to do. What's that? Ava asked. It brought people together. It created something greater than the sum of its parts. He smiled down at her. Just like us. In the distance, the lights of Manhattan sparkled like the crystalline structure of the algorithm itself, complex, beautiful, full of potential. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new discoveries, new opportunities to expand Eleanor's vision. But tonight, in this moment of quiet triumph, Ava knew with absolute certainty that she had honored her mother's legacy in the truest way possible, not by seeking revenge, but by completing the work Eleanor had begun. The recipe was perfect, and the future, like the best dishes, was just beginning to reveal its full flavor. Hey there, amazing viewers. What did you think of Ava's journey? I hope you found it as satisfying as I did to write. If Eleanor's story touched your heart, make sure you hit that subscribe button right now to catch more stories like this one. I'd love to know which character was your favorite. Was it determined Ava, reformed Thornhill, or loyal Claudia? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for joining me on this culinary adventure. Where are you watching from? Let me know, and I'll see you in the next story.